What is going on YouTube? Today I'm going to give you some tips to take out the Ravenous Hunter in hard mode. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. So to start out with, the Ravenous Hunter hard mode fight is a little bit different than the normal mode fight. So because of that, I would suggest bringing a handful of healing items, some sanity gummies, and possibly some living armor. Now, if you're doing the fight solo, I would say consider bringing some spring legs and or some stardust ratatouille to help with your mobility, as you'll be doing a lot of kiting in this fight. Now that we've got all the prep out of the way, you need to mentally prepare yourself to swear a lot, both under your breath and out loud. The arbiters in this fight have an insane reach, and it will feel like you are getting hit half the arena away. On top of that, the boss does have one AoE attack that is almost impossible to dodge if you're not paying attention. Having said all that, this fight is a good mix of challenging mechanics as well as boss health. So now that we've went over the basics, let's jump in and talk about the phases of the fight. So this fight does start out a lot like the old one, with the boss standing in the middle of the arena. Now in the hard mode fight, you can only damage the gun in his hand in this phase, and I cannot remember if the normal mode fight was the exact same way. In any case, the main thing you want to do here is stand behind these large generators and pop shots at the boss when their gun overheats. Continue to do this until you put enough damage into the gun that it breaks and the boss drops it on the ground. Now in the normal mode fight, you would typically run up and grab the chain gun. You do not want to do that in this version of the fight. The chain gun slows down your movement and makes you a sitting duck for some very hard hitting attacks. Ultimately, ignore the fact that the gun is on the ground and prepare for the second half of this phase. Now in this part of the phase, the boss adds in two additional AoE attacks. One is a straight line AoE rocket that's very easy to avoid. Essentially, just put an object between you and the boss before they fire the attack, and that object will bear the brunt of the attack. The second attack is an upward shot AoE, and this attack is very, very challenging to avoid. The strategy I've found is do not wait for the shots to be fired. As soon as you see the boss raise their hand in the air, start running in a straight line to the best of your ability. Your goal is to be moving before the red circles even show up under your feet, because you only have a second or two from the time the circle shows up until the rocket hits the ground where you're standing. If you get hit by even a single projectile here, expect to take a pummeling. And if you're hit by the first projectile, expect to be instantly downed. This was by far one of the worst parts of the encounter to me because it felt so punishing. Not only are there no good overhangs to use for cover, but the time between when you see the attack coming and when it hits the ground is too fast. I personally think there needs to be a little bit more of a delay between when the missiles hit, or the radius on them needs to be adjusted. But having said all of that, it is the way the attack works now, and the best thing I've found is just to run. Now between these two attacks, you need to put in DPS when you can. Ultimately, when you hit the damage threshold, this phase will be over and you will move on to the next phase of the fight. In this phase of the fight, the boss summons 4 spawners that you have to destroy instead of the 2 that you normally do in normal mode. If that wasn't enough, you're actually going to be being chased by 2 arbiters at the same time. My strategy for this should be the same whether you're solo or in a group. and that is to basically ignore the Gnars the entire time. And the reason I say that is because the Gnars will despawn as soon as the pods are broken, so there's no reason to even waste the ammo on them. Now this is where things will get a little bit different if you're in a party to if you're solo. If you're solo, treat this like Call of Duty Zombies, and basically kite everything while you work on breaking the spawners. If you're in a team, you can actually divide people up and have a few people work on killing the arbiters while the other people kite the Gnars and break the spawners. Now, having said that, while you're doing all of this kiting and breaking spawners, you still have to avoid the rocket blast that the boss shoots at you from time to time. This rocket is also basically hit scan, so as soon as you see the laser on you, you need to run and try to grab cover. You only have a few seconds from when the laser shows up to when the rocket is shot, and if you are in the open, you will not be able to avoid taking damage. Now I do want to spend a few seconds talking about the arbiters. They're absolutely annoying, mainly because their hit radius goes brokenly far. I ended up developing two strategies to take these guys out. The first strategy is just to run with your camera looking back. If you get a good distance between you and the arbiter, stop, turn around, and put damage on it. When the arbiter starts to get close, turn around and run again. I would also say zigzag in and out of a few objects, and hopefully they will stick the monster long enough for you to create more distance. The second strategy is the strategy I would use if I was being chased and got hit. The arbiters have a 3-hit combo, and if you get hit with the first part of it, just continue to run. You can typically put enough distance between you that you are not at risk of being hit by their subsequent follow-ups, and this gives you plenty of time to put in some serious damage while they are animation locked. I would alternate between these two strategies until you get the arbiters down. So after you clear the arbiters and the spawners, you go into what I consider to be the third phase of the fight. In this phase, the boss teleports back down to the center and spawns 2 additional shades of itself. These 2 shades end up at your spawn and on top of the stage. Your first priority should be the shade that is in your spawn, and that is because its main attack is the aerial AoE that is basically unavoidable. It is at this moment that I would use my offensive deviation to make sure I burn these things down as fast as possible. After you clear the one from your spawn, focus on the one on top of the stage. After you clear both of these shades, you have effectively reset the encounter back to phase 1, and it's time just to rinse and repeat. Alright guys, I did this boss solo and it took me 3 phases, which I expect to be the way the fight is programmed. I think that doing this in a group will just allow you to burn through the phases faster. In my view, the boss's health was not obnoxiously high, nor were that of the arbiters. For example, I started the fight with 6,689 bullets, and I ended the fight with 4,274 bullets. The fight did take me about 27 minutes to solo on my first attempt. I do expect that time will come down quite a bit now that I know the encounter. I think if you did this with a group of people, I would expect that you could clear it in 5 minutes or less. All in all, I think this was a good fight, and I applaud the devs for not just making the bosses bullet sponges. The new mechanics did help to make the fight feel a little bit more challenging, and I hope this guide helps you and your teams clear the encounter. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. And as always, have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.